Welcome to Waking Wellness. Today we have another amazingly transformative episode. I'm very excited because it directly relates to our last episode, which was consistency and the four agreements. And today's episode, it just came to me and I thought, okay, well, let's do would you rather be normal or would you rather be extraordinary? And as soon as I did that, it came to me maybe there's something in the four agreements. Of course there is, because all four agreements lead us to be extraordinary. And I wanted to at first go through all of the agreements, but I could tell that I was really meant to stick with the fourth and the last agreement. And that agreement is to always do your best. So let's go into that agreement and how it takes us out of being normal and leads us into being extraordinary. And then I'm also going to go a little bit in depth on what I mean about that and its importance. So, always do your best. The fourth agreement. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. That's important. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So let's go to that first point that they mentioned. And I really love that because I think it's simple for us to think that our best is always going to be exactly the same as another time. Well, that's obviously not going to be the case because all circumstances require a different version of ourselves, even if it is the same task, but repeating it. If you have to repeat that task again in a different moment, you are a different version of yourself. And so understanding that as we live in the now, it gives us power to understand that my best is not always going to be my Tuesday best, isn't always going to be my Wednesday's best, but my best is always going to be my best. And only you actually know what that is. Only you have the ability to tap into that potential and really awaken that and start to explore what that even feels like and how your life feels when you do exert that kind of energy and effort and being. That second one, under any circumstance, do your best always, and you will avoid self judgment, self abuse, and regret. I love that one, not only because how powerful it really shows always why always doing your best is as important as it is, but we're also again linking this back to our episode yesterday and consistency. Being able to do this consistently and always bringing your best consistently is different than bringing your best on Monday and then bringing your best on Friday and then maybe 3 days next week. Always doing your best consistently requires a different mode of being, and it's not something that is going to, these four agreements are simple, yet to actually embody it is a really, any one of them could be a lifelong practice, and they all are lifelong practices. So actually treating them as such and not as if, okay, I did it this week, perfect, I know what it's like now, I've done it off the checklist and it's complete. It's no, it's something that you take and you should be meditating on and cultivating life and a way of being from every day, as opposed to going, oh well, I did my best today and then I didn't make any assumptions today, oh I'm doing great like that's good in a maybe a report card type of way, just to do your weekly check and say, okay, this week I did good, da, 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 da. But to actually act as if the whole practice is based off of that one time or that 1 week or that 1 month is losing scope of what we're actually talking about. And so I think it's so important again, and I love it because each of these agreements directly relate to consistency, and anything within success or having a successful process, it involves consistency. And so again, it's not going to be about, oh, let me go to the gym and max out all of my weight and just see how many reps I can get off that. It's more of a do less weight with more repetitions. and more frequent visits, as opposed to trying to again push out these spectacular feats maybe once every blue moon. It's much better the other way, because then you begin to build, you begin to evolve, and do so in a way that through that process you are refined to start producing your best every day at a more effortless kind of flow. And that's what we're actually looking to get into when we're talking about anything, when we're talking about mastering a skill, bettering ourselves in the workplace, in a relationship, anywhere and anything, it all takes that consistency. So I love to bring that into this episode and connecting that with always doing your best with, would you prefer to be ordinary or normal or extraordinary? I love that, because that consistency that's a big separation. It's a big separation. Again, I went into a little bit in the last episode, about me and sort of personal experience, but the difference of being, and I reflect a lot on different things or undertakings that I've done, and seeing how they differ due to consistency, due to everything that we've talked about, and then being able to look and go, okay, I think maybe that could have become this with this kind of level of consistency. And so to understand that, especially while reflecting, and then to bring that back into here and the now, and how will I use that knowledge and that wisdom to apply into where I am looking to go into right now, is the goal. And so I really do, again, I think these episodes they're really interchangeable, almost as are the agreements, in a way that each of them follow. They are part of the Toltec wisdom. And so when we're dealing with wisdom, we're dealing with an ancient wisdom, specifically, but wisdom is ancient and wise in itself. Uh, we have to understand we need to approach it in a way that is very respectable, honorable. And when you do so, there's a different kind of way of being, and a different kind of respect, and the way that you approach it. And that's what we are meant to do with these, because these are a way of life that grants us an opening and a stepping into the realm of personal freedom. And so many of us want these things, but so many of us, again, we read these books, or we listen to these discussions, or these podcasts, or we take in this information, and as opposed to really processing it, refining it, and integrating it, it's more of like a quick process. It's like, I took it in, so I did everything that I can do. And that's almost like the modern way of really saying, like, oh no, I did. Like, yeah, I read that book. Like, cool. It's like one of my teachers used to say how people, especially when we were talking philosophy, and he would go into like the themselves, or the they self, which is, we understand that it's almost like the social acclimation. It's almost like the collective unconscious, really, in a way. It's the dream of, the collective, in a way. And he would say, like, people go and like do trips and all these things. Like, what the trip is, obviously everyone may have their own goal and everything, but typically when you take a trip, it's because you're supposed to really enjoy the culture and really be immersed and have an integration, right? So we can learn from the culture and learn about ourselves, and how, really, and then how that culture is a reflection of the world, and vice versa, and just have this actual understanding and awakening and enlightenment, right? But what he used to stress what he used to harp on was that he's like, oh, people are gonna go to Paris, and then like you instantly, like, what do? You go to the Eiffel Tower and you take a photo. And it's so funny because like that is the truth slash the modern way of being, like, as opposed to, before I go on that, and that signifies that, like, you've done Paris, like, and you did it right. Like, oh, I got my photo, and then I'm out, and it's doing that everywhere. Like, oh, I was at the Coliseum, like, and then people, because it can be validated by others by, like, oh man, you went there, like, that's so exhilarating, like, your life is, and all these things, because we're creatures of association. We instantly just throw that on, smack onto your life. Whereas, like, if you do all of these things and you never actually are there for the immersion and the integration of culture itself, then what's really happening? It's just a quick process. It's like, oh, I did this, so I'm like that, and it can be seen or said that it's like that, and I'm like that, and then that's what it is. And then really it's just this sort of, I guess, this cross validation that's supposed to be happening, that is really not stimulating much else other than, like, oh, you're like that, she's like that, he's like that. Like, other than that. But on the real side, when you go on these experiences, if you go to Paris, I'm not saying that you're not supposed to have a photo of yourself in front of the Eiffel Tower, one of the most iconic, one of the most iconic features in the world, or structures, but it has to be something more than that. Like, when we really get down to it, it's almost like anything in the world, that, and we understand that these things are really not broken down, obviously. Like, many times we celebrate holidays that we don't even believe in, or we don't even know why we're supposed to believe in them, but we believe in them, quote unquote. Like, it's so much of that, so I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole and into that kind of philosophical, philosophy 101 type of talk or discourse. But it's just wild, because it's funny, and it's how I used to say, like, oh, you're just gonna go to these places, take these photos, and we're just quick info processing. It's just quick swiping, right? Like, oh, okay, I can say I took that in. Oh, I read this book, but I really speed read it, and I didn't really, or I read it and I deeply read it maybe, but I didn't take any of this into the real world with me. And it's like, again, are you just whew, are you just accruing are you just accruing knowledge, or are you taking what you are soaking up and then you actually applying it and moving into the realm of wisdom, properly applying that knowledge, the proper wisdom or the proper knowledge? And so it's funny to me to really go through this, and especially when we're talking about normalcy versus being extraordinary, because, again, these are all things that can be seen on many different levels. But of course, when we're talking, we're not specifically focusing through the material aspect. So what does it even mean to be extraordinary outside of a material, outside of oh, I can measure this much by whether it's dollars or assets or connection, whatever it is, that I can just say I have this many or this much of, and that makes me superior, and not even anyone else, just superior in any kind of aspect. Like, what does it mean to be extraordinary outside of those kind of realms? That's just an important question to sit with yourself again, and to cultivate these kind of questions. And when we're talking about the four agreements, that's exactly what we are doing. We are asking those questions, and not just asking them, they're being defined for us, with us, and teaching us how to integrate them. It's asking us, what does it actually mean to be a well-refined person? Like, it's good to say, oh, what's a good person? What's a good person? Asking that kind of question, and then defining it with, or giving that some guidelines. In the four agreements, it does that, and it teaches us. Again, I started off doing these episodes with the first component of the episode. So the first episode was named consistency, and then this episode was named would you rather be normal or extraordinary? That was actually the main focus of the episode. And then I said, oh, I've been wanting to do the four agreements, so let me find a way to integrate them. And they naturally integrated themselves because that is already, it's already a part of the book. It's already part of the agreement. The agreement already implies consistency. For it to be a true and a proper agreement, the agreements, if they are doing what we all truly are when we are aligned with our purpose, then they should be giving us the ways to a more aligned and a more refined, more activated, and more self-aware self. And so they do that because it's already in there. And so that's also what sort of cues you to know, okay, this is some wisdom. This is proper knowledge, proper application, and it just fits so smoothly into your life. Really, no matter where you are, the only turbulence that you'll ever receive or that you'll ever give back to this is how much you decide you want to rebel, I guess, against the idea of freedom or of being free from restrictions, limits, addictions, any of these things, and not really thinking that personal freedom exists. That will be the only time you can ever see yourself, or you can find a resistance to what is being taught. And right away, it teaches us what toxicity is. It teaches us what the poison is that we allow to live within. So all of this is just, again, I love the book. Everyone loves it. And I love that it's been so many years that it's gone past. And like, it just seems like every so many years that the book regains a resurgence of, oh my God, I know I've been hearing all about this book. And so I've heard that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I hear it still today. And so it's very, I think, amazing. And it shows us the power of Toltec wisdom and what is being taught within this tradition of self-freedom, and how easily we can see and make the connections to consistency, as well as making the choice to be our best self and saying, I decide this is what I want. And that's also a part that I wanted to go within. What do I even mean? I went into that a little bit, but when I say that, what I really wanted to dive into is so many of us skip over what makes us us, what makes us unique. And when I think about this, a book comes to mind, The Unique Ability, and I have to go into that. But I went through that book many times, but have not finished, so I will need to finish before I actually do so with you all. But it reminds me of that book and how powerful it reminds us of our unique ability, that personal trait that is so specific to you, that just really highlights like why you're here. And it highlight when you walk in a room, that's the thing that you add to it. When you get into a project, that's how you go and you throw your spin on it, and it just goes, wow, okay, because you were here, that's what now it adds to it. And so it makes me think how powerful it is when we start to, or when we stop rejecting aspects of ourselves that seem so different from others, that seems so just like, man, this is only me, this is weird. And it starts to beg the question of nonconformity. When we start to learn to tap into these, embrace these, and hone them, we really start to see how we fit in to the greater plan of what is to source of life itself and evolution itself. Because then we could go, wow, I obviously wasn't supposed to be like everything else, or else I would not have anything to add different. And so again, learning to always do our best, it even starts to awaken that. Like when you decide that, even if you're like, man, obviously the first time you decide to make that choice is going to be a lot different than the 100th time or the 1,000th or the 10,000th time that you've chosen to make that choice, just due to experience and being through that so many times. And when we do, it starts to chisel away at the blocks that we've put up inside, all of the things and the constructs and the paradigms that we've created that have lessened us and have made us go, okay, it's okay to be less than my best. And we just keep chiseling away at that. So the 10,000th time that we say, I just got to choose my best, that's all I know how to do, we come out swinging a lot stronger than, maybe the first time, like, I'll put my fist up. But like, after the 100th time, because you got beat up so many times, you like, I know I got to come out swinging, because if I don't, it's so much more likely that the doubt and everything else is just going to knock me out. And Les Brown said it funny, like when you are in life and when you do in life, you're gonna get knocked down regardless. So it's better getting knocked down standing up for something as opposed to sitting down and getting knocked down and knocked out. And that's so real. You might as well go out with a fight. Like you might as well say, look, if it's a possibility that I'm gonna go out either way, then I might as well go out giving it all that I have. And when we think of that, sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of that. Sometimes you're just having a bad day and you're going through the motions at work and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I just want this day to be over. But that's typically akin to an energy that's just like, oh, I need to, like, as opposed to, you know what? I got to do the time anyway, so I might as well do it at my best. Because when you start to do that, you start to do everything at your best. And I mean, you'll start to sleep your best, like doing things that we think that we don't need to put effort into, but you will start seeing that effort and confidence and that spark of who you are and your unique ability, your unique trait is going to start to shine across. So it don't matter where you are. You could be walking down the street and people who have awareness, there's going to be some people who lack awareness heavily, and those are going to be the ones you really start shining through. They're going to be like, they got something that I can't put my, I don't know. I can't really like put it down or and it's going to be funny because that's what it is. And it shows up in charisma, or it shows up in your ability to communicate. It shows up in your ability to connect in so many ways that, again, if you could connect with somebody that you're walking with down the street who just goes, and they can really feel it, it's ways to do that with, obviously, there's ways to do that with people that you're speaking to, or that you have some kind of intimate level of connection with, even if that's a negative. It may be somebody at work that you just like, this might get on my nerves. But if you, again, can affect a stranger who, you feel me, I have no other proximity other than that passing, but if you can affect and open their heart and or change their mind and or introduce a new idea, vibration, you could change their aura. If you can do any of that to a stranger, you bet that all it takes is that, okay, let me think, that intention. Let me be very thoughtful and mindful about how I want to approach this person, because maybe we always just been on edge because I've always been on edge with them. I never thought, like, after that one time, I just said, forget it. But that's still a choice on your behalf to say, I've been saying forget it, because the forget it energy comes with, I see them, I ain't gonna say, as opposed to you change up and you switch up and you walk in the office like, hey, how you doing? Hey, Rhonda, how's it going? Rhonda gonna be looking like, what? Like, she may have had to give it back. Like, and that may change the relationship. No matter what, the relationship is changed once you have changed your response, and therefore change the way that we have been relating to the paradigm. Because you go, you know what? I no longer want to have a Rhonda beef. Like, I want to walk into the office on great terms with everybody, even those that, I wasn't on great terms with before. And so when we do that, again, that's always doing your best kind of energy. That's going to take forgiveness. That's going to take clarity. That's going to take consistency. That's going to take integrity. That's going to take a whole bunch of things. So again, these 4 agreements, like they always say, simple. It's simpler said than done. That's real. Like that's real, and we get to feel the power of that when we start to work with simplistic but powerful, again, wisdom. These 4 things are wisdom. They are not something to be taken lightly and just say, oh, this dude wrote this in a book and he thought it was going to be good and it turned out it's a bestseller. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about wisdom that has been tried and true through tradition, that has been passed down because it is effective and has created an effective way of living and being. So I really hope that you all do go through the 4 agreements. We're going to go through the 2nd and the 3rd and other episodes. And eventually, I think we're going to do an episode that goes all the way through the book and even read through a lot of it with you all. But I wanted to come with the episode with you, with that for you all, because it came, and I wanted to make sure I did my due diligence. And that is part of me saying, okay, that's part of my best. Part of your best has to be when everything says no and you feel that it's supposed to be a yes. You have to keep going, even though, I got somebody on YouTube saying some wow, like negative comments. And it's funny because typically that's my best fuel. When I get naysay and negative, I'm like, thank you, because now I have to prove it wrong. And so that's something just about me that I had to go, okay, thank you. But that's part of it. Always doing your best is not going to be when I feel my best, but it's going to be when I feel my worst, when I feel like I can't do it. How do I still show up? And how do I show up at my best? Then, like, that best compared to your healthy tip-top best, 100% best, is going to be different, because that may be your 25% best. But if you can learn how to give that, then you are always maxing out in your ability to be really maximally available for you, for your optimal self, for the way that you desire to live. And that starts to create, it just really starts to elevate the level of standard that you have in your life. And I like what Tony Robbins said, that standard is different from expectation, because expectation is sort of almost like a desire, like, oh, like I sort of wanted, like, like, okay, I could like it's supposed to come. Standard is I ain't doing nothing less than this. Like, it just is what it is. Like, and that's a powerful thing, because that just means that's the cutoff. Nothing that's less than this is going on. And when you can start to do like this, like this, like this, like this with the standard, then, like, you see how that change becomes not just effective, but momentous. And after it becomes momentous, it's just like, that's when people say nothing can stop this person. Nothing, and that's when we believe I am unstoppable. Nothing can stop me, and that's the kind of mindset that we need when we are chasing our endeavors and our dreams with a holistic, with a authentic. And again, you have to have integrity when you do this, and that only adds to it. And so I hope all of this really sinks in and clicks and connects with you all for the first episode of consistency with the first agreement. And we're connecting the first and the fourth, but also the second and third sort of go hand in hand. So it's funny how that works. And I'm excited to get into the next episodes for you all. This is Waking Wellness. Health is Wealth. Love you all.